When I started Quilt in a Day 25 years ago, my only employee was my good friend, Jerry Packard. Well, here she is in Trio of Treasured Quilts. She's the one in the center, my sister Patty, and I'm also in this photo. Well, Jerry was an all-around girl Friday. Well, through the years, my staff has grown to around 35 people. Well, we gathered together last Christmas for this staff photo. It's just a great picture. Well, my staff is just a galaxy of radiant stars in my life. They're always coming forth with stellar performances. Well, on the other hand, my students are just glorious bits of color sewn into charming four patches, and they just delight me with their brilliant accomplishments. Well, it's fitting that staff and students become one constellation as stars and four patch. You know, this is an easy quilt to do. There's only two different colors for the stars. There's the dark purple star points in the medium purple centers, and then the second star has dark and medium green. Now the points are set off with the four patches. And by adding a background lattice and cornerstones, a chain just appears to flow right through that quilt. Well, for 25 years, those four patch strips are 2.5 inches wide. Plus, this glorious Seminole border is from 2.5 strips too. I'm going to show you how easy that border is to make. You'll really love it. Now, student Julie Markovitz made this scrappy one, 1930s reproduction prints. It's just so charming. I love it. Well, for continuity, each star has the same 4 points, and the center square and 4 patches are also the same. And the Seminole on this one is just a party with all bits of color. Well, Nancy Letchworth did the long arm quilting. She put big stippling all over the quilt. It's just so cute. Now, you don't need to make a Seminole border. This quilt doesn't have a Seminole on it. Well, staffer Sue Bouchard made this one to honor her grandmother. Now, her grandmother just loved owls, so she fussy cut owls for the center of her stars. Well, the star points are scrappy, but the 4 patch is from the same fabric, so the chain just pulls all those stars together. So now, let's see if I can give a stellar performance demonstrating these stars and 4 patches. We can thank our lucky stars because these patches are easy to do. Now, I already have my strips cut. They're ready for sewing. The star points come from 6-inch strips. I'm using the dark purple, and then the very center of that star is a 4.5-inch square, a medium in the purple, and then I'm doing a second set of stars with the dark green points and the medium green center. Just let me move these out of the way and we'll cut those points. You know, those points are just tricky little guys. They're actually mirror image. So to do it correctly, when you cut your strips, salvage to salvage, leave them wrong sides together and layer cut them wrong sides together. The first cut is a 3 by 6 rectangle. For every star that you're making, you need to have 2 pairs of 3 by 6 rectangles. So get them cut, and then once you have them cut into 3 by 6, take your 6 by 12 ruler, position it corner to corner, and just cut 1 diagonal on each one of these pairs. Let me just get this one cut and we'll move on. Now, once they're cut on the diagonal, take these pieces and just open them up. This is when it gets tricky because you have to take a half. You can't do this out of just one rectangle. So I have right here in this stack enough for all 4 points on the star. We are moving. Okay, the next unit is a triangle. This is called a triangle and a square patch. Now, we need to have the triangle ruler. This is a 5-inch strip. And you actually, the easiest way is just to take your strips salvage to salvage and lay them right sides up and stack them, because whenever we're done cutting, then you're going to have every triangle turned right side up, ready to go. There's a blunt top on the ruler. That's the part that lines up with the top of the ruler. And actually, they're a little oversized, so if there's a not quite straight across the bottom or a little excess, doesn't matter. The easiest way is just to cut up one side, turn your cutter, cut down the other side, take this little piece, get rid of it. Now, take the ruler, take the triangle ruler, turn it in the reverse direction, line up that blunt top along here, and cut. Well, I had 2 layers. I now have 4 triangles, and they are ready for one whole star. Do you believe that? Is that fast or what? Okay, let me just move these out of the way, and I'm going to take and just set this right one aside. I don't even want to think about this one right here. All I want to look at is the triangle and this piece on the left. And you take them, you take the triangle and flip it right sides together. Let me just show you one. And very carefully line up at the top so that you have just that little 1/4 of an inch tip hanging out right there. When it goes corner to corner like that, you know you have it good. Okay, let me take this stack and just start sewing for you. Bring them close. 1/4 inch foot on here. You might want to go ahead through the whole process on the first one and make sure that you can square it up correctly. Okay, I've lined it up at the top, and I also have this tip right down here at the bottom. And so just hold that flat, sew that right along there, and you'll just keep on flipping triangles right sides together to star points. Get that lined up again. Got that perfect little 1/4 inch, and just push it right through there. Okay, I'm just going to do these 2, and I'll show you how to press them. You always want to drop them on the pressing mat with the star points on the top, and set the seam with the dark points on the top, and open and press so that the seam is right behind that star point. Ooh, looking good. Now, the next point is a tricky match point too. Let me show you. This is what it looks like up on the top. Whenever you press that open, you've got that perfect tip sticking out right up there. I've got this down at the bottom here. Now you want to take the second point from the star, flip it right sides together, and just line those tops up exactly like that. And then just sew that right along there. Easy to do. Okay, let me line that up and just pass right through there. You know, I told you that my staff are stars. They are just great stars. In '96, whenever I first came out with Stars Across America, we had a great time costuming ourselves as the ladies in the book. Oh, what fun we had. Dixie dressed up like Clara Barton with her little nurse bag, and Can dressed up as Frances Willard with her broom. She was going to stamp alcohol out of town. And Ann Deese dressed up as Sojourner Truth. She was going to show everybody that she was a woman. Such fun we had. Okay, set the seam one more time and open. Press right into that seam. Looking good. At least 2 good, very perky star points. Well, I like to do everything oversized because, you know, everybody's seam allowance isn't quite perfect. So to make these patches squared perfect, we have this square up ruler, and this is actually a 4.5 inch outside edge. There are green lines on it for the 4.5 inch triangle in a square patch. So I'm going to take that green line and just push it right up onto those seams. Looking good. So the patch is actually squared up to that very size, so I don't have to keep on moving it around. I'm going to put it just on this little mat right here. If you have a small mat, it's perfect. You cut along one side, down this side. Don't even lift it, just turn your mat, trim it around like that, and trim on the remaining 2 sides. And whenever that patch is squared up, it's perfect if you have this 1/4 inch seam right up here, and down in these corners you have 1/8 inch seams. So you can use a little mat. That's really fun, but look at this. You might want to use a turntable like this one. Just put your patch on, line up those green lines on your seams, trim on 2 sides, and without even picking anything up, just swing that turnable around, and you will have a second perfect patch. Well, let me get all my patches done, and I'll show you how to sew the star together. It's forward with those 4 patches. They are 2.5 inch strips. You use the same background and a 1/3 medium. Now the medium that I selected has this green background and then the dark purple roses all over it, so it's just a perfect complement to the purple and the green stars. Now take these 2 strips, sew them right sides together with that 1/4 inch seam, press the seam towards the medium and measure them before you go on. Just try 1 strip first because the strips need to measure 4.5 inches, so they'll fit together with those points on the stars. Now, wouldn't you like your patches to all go together? Okay, take the first set and place the medium strip on the bottom, and so we layer cut. Take a second set and put the dark, the medium at the top, and just place them so those seams lock together. Kind of roll them in. You can always wiggle with your fingers and lock them together. I'd like to use this tool. You can go ahead and use a 6x12, but we want to square off that left edge and then cut 2.5 inch sections. This goes so fast. Boy, you know me. Got to get it done quick. You need to have 4 patches per star. So let's just get rid of the salvage. We've got 4 all set to go. Now I always position the seams so that the seam on the top goes up. And that's so that you can hold that seam flat with the stiletto, and then it pushes into the bottom seam underneath it, which is going down. So just hold on there, sew those through, assembly line sew one after the other. I'm just going to do one because I want to show you this next little trick. You really want that seam to lay flat, lay the whole block flat when you're done. So this straight seam right here, I'm going to pick out those 3 stitches with my stiletto, turn it around, and on the same side, on the opposite side, those vertical seams right there. Pick those 3 stitches out, and then lay your block wrong side up, and just with your fingers, just split that open. Just kind of mush it right in the middle. And when you're done mushing, this is just amazing. Now on the wrong side, you also have a little 4 patch. But those seams are just going to swirl right around each other and lay perfectly flat. This is just a nice way of doing all of the 4 patch so that they are perfectly flat. Oh, this is good. Even matches. You can look at that. Well, once you have your 4 patch done, you turn them so that they all go in towards the center. That's the direction. Perfect. Now, sew these together with vertical seams. I like to take the middle row and flip it over to the left and just stack them so that the top block is on the top. Okay, this is my sewing corner right here. And then this one, you can just stack top to bottom. This is the 3rd row. Just set it aside. So let me grab the top of the 2 rows, all flipped right sides together, and just line up that 4 patch with the star patch. This is kind of interesting because that corner on the star point is 1/8 inch. You have that extra 1/8 inch. So line those up, send that right through, take the next 2 and assembly line sew them right behind. Usually I have to raise my presser foot. We want to take a look to see how it fits on the back side. And then this is the 3rd one in that vertical row. Push that right through. Hold this flat here and I'll show you how that looks whenever that's sewn. All right, 2 rows. You get down here in the corner. This is right. You've got that seam going right along there like that. And on the wrong side, let's look here. So that's just going a little shy of that point. But when you open that up, that is probably going to be just perfect, looking good. So let's just open up these 2 rows and keep them connected together. And up here at this point, you still have that 1/4 inch up at the top. The 3rd row just goes right here like this. Position it so that you see that the 4 patches going right into it. And just flip these right sides together. Boy, twisted my row around a little bit. Now I just have to look at it. Okay, now we're just going to open that up. These blocks are connected all together. It's perfect. Now you flip the other way without clipping it apart, and at the seams you want the seams to lock. You always press the seams away from the star point, and then it would be in the opposite direction underneath so that those lock together. Let me just line this up, and I'm going to go right across the other side, other way, and I'll show you how it all goes together. Okay, seams always away from the star points, hold them flat. You want to make sure you cross that little V on the top of the star. Match those lines up there. This is one more seam, and this star is going to be together. Let me show you. Right across here, that's perfect, seams away. So whenever you lift this up, then you've got a really crisp point right there. So take your blocks, finish sewing them together, press them and measure them. And then go ahead and start laying out alternating stars, alternating colors with lattice cut the same size as the star, along with 2.5-inch cornerstones. Sew those rows together, vertical rows top to bottom, and then go across the other way. You need to just add a framing border, and you're ready for the Seminole. We're going to strip our way through this Seminole. There are 3 different strips in it. The center one is from the dark star point. It's 2.5 inches wide. And then the medium is 2 3/4 inches wide. And that same background is also 2 3/4 inches wide. So just sew those strips together, press those seams towards the dark, and chop them up into 2.5-inch sections. That was easy. Now work on one side at a time. A wall hanging needs to have 12 of these units in each side. So stack 6 in each stack. Just work on one side and then offset them 1. You do it just like that. Offset them 1. The bottom, the right is always just 1 step lower. So let's just see if we can't take the piece on the right, flip it right sides together to the piece on the left, and this is the seam that you lock together right here. Just wiggle that in there. You've got that good old, it's about, it's more than 1/4 inch at the top, hanging at the top, and then a little bit more at the bottom. So just line that up, and you assembly line sew. Now while you're assembly line sewing, it's interesting because so often on Seminole, you're just sewing on nothing. You're just like in between pieces, but it's a lot easier if you just continuously sew instead of starting and stopping each time. Okay, lock that seam right there. Got top, at the bottom, and just go one after the other. You sew all of them into pairs, and then after the pairs are together, then you just clip the pairs apart and sew them together. Here, let me open up these 2 pieces and I'll show you. All right, let's see how the match is. Looking good. And then this is the next one. It's always 1 step lower, just like this. Match that point, flip it right sides together. Keep on sewing until you have all 12 in a row. Not quite 12 here, but I'm getting close. Now, think of a Seminole as a miter. Think how it goes in like this, as a miter. And that's exactly what I have here with this piece. There's 12 in a row here. The miter goes in like this. To create that miter, you need to add an additional piece right on the corner. This is a 2.5-inch square, and these are 2.5 by 2 3/4 inches. And you line up this point right here, flip it right sides together. Those seams will lock. And you actually have about 1/4 of an inch sticking out underneath on that light background. That is correct. So just add on that little corner. It is amazing how this all fits together. Okay, lock that point right there. Hold those pieces down with the Seminole. And the next step is just to press all of these units to one side. Just lay it down, press it all to one side. Next, you have to trim off these white tips all along here. And the 6 by 24 ruler is the best ruler for doing that. And you line up the 1/4 inch line right at the top of the seams. There's 1/4 inch right there. But right down here, you line it up so that it goes right to that peak of the purple. There's a seam here, so you have the 1/4 inch. There's not a seam here, so you go right to that point. But once you have that 6 by 24 lined up, oh, there's no going back. Once you start trimming off these pieces, just move it along here. The same down at the corner, right out here at the peak, right at the point, 1/4 inch all along there. And you can pull or tweak your pieces underneath just to get exactly how you need it trimmed. Now, once you have your Seminoles trimmed, you want to go ahead on the wrong side and measure in 1/4 inch, going right along that seam, and put a little dot. One dot, 1/4 inch in on both ends. Let me take and do it on the second side. 1/4 inch here and on both sides. And then the same with the top. 1/4 inch, you've got that dot in, 1/4 inch in. And now we're just going to pin these right sides together. If you take and you find the halfway mark on your Seminole, let's just give it a fold, find out where we're going. Okay, here's the halfway point on the Seminole, and the halfway point on this would be right in the center of that 2.5 inch cornerstone. And where's my pins? Got to get my pins back. Now let's put a pin in right here at the center, and then right out here at this little dot, 1/4 inch in. Put your pin right through there, put your pin right through there. Kind of stand that up and then push it together. And this 1/4 inch right in here, you do not sew. You leave that open. That's so you can get that miter done. Okay, and then everything in between, just lay it flat, position it in place, and then you can sew this whole strip with the Seminole on the bottom. That's so you don't stretch out all those pieces. Oh my goodness. And of course, I already have one whole corner that I've already done. This was just sewn right sides together to it. There it is, that 1/4 inch that is open there, 1/4 inch there. And so this whole piece is open right here when you meet together. So this is the last step, to just fold these two little corners down, roll those seams in place. They will lock, and you just stitch from that little 1/4 inch point out. Let me use the needle down and just sew right along there. It is amazing how this all goes together. Now once you have that corner sewn, then this will just press flat. And before you can add your borders, you need to square off this whole corner. So take your 12.5 inch square up ruler and line it up at those 1/4 inch points again, and just trim off the corners using the 12.5 inch square up ruler, and then square up the sides in between with your 6 by 24. And the last step is just to go ahead and put those borders around the outside edge.